Kia ora, and I'm Graeme Soloway. I'm from New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, so I'm program lead for our work in the Australia defence market. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today around what New Zealand Trade and Enterprise does, but I want to specifically focus on what came out of the recent budget and in terms of COVID response. So I'll rattle through a few of these slides at the front end and get to the meat of the discussion of the presentation as quick as I can. So a bit about our organisation. Our purpose is to grow companies internationally for the good of New Zealand. So we do have a strong government economic growth, but resulting in good outcomes measure. And with an overall objective to deliver a productive, sustainable and inclusive New Zealand. So for the motherhood there, we know that New Zealand's a trading nation. We're all about adding value rather than volume. So a very important part of what we do. We're in it for the long term, so we want to be involved. We want businesses who are committed to building long-term markets. We also carry the strong belief that New Zealand's good for the world. We're there. We have a value proposition as a country. We're part of that, and it's important for us to support our businesses in achieving that end goal. We've got I won't go into much detail here, but the strategy there rides down from that purpose into what is our core capabilities and organisations around who we know and what we know, and how to guide and how to advise New Zealand firms how to do that. We work across both investment and export customers. So we talk about our customers, and our customers mean businesses in New Zealand when we refer to customers. It's a lot of who you are in the room. You'll either be, if you're a New Zealand business, you'll be likely to be an exporter. If you're one of the businesses from overseas, you might be looking at New Zealand. You may be an investment customer. You may be looking to invest your capital in New Zealand. In that case, we as a government agency are here to try and support you in both those endeavours. In terms of export customers, that is the New Zealand business sector, if you like. We define that in terms of our intense focus group of customers, the foundation customers who we also work with, and also want to make a special mention around coalitions, which is an area where we are seeking collaboration. And I think that's something which this organisation and the businesses in here could potentially be thinking about. We operate across two different models around that. Again, I won't go into the detail around that. Customer way organisation, looking at New Zealand companies going out into the international market. Investment, looking at investors coming into New Zealand, how they deploy capital into New Zealand businesses or into sectors and opportunities. This is really by just showing that there is I just want to make the point here that we work across a whole range of New Zealand businesses in that from the top level to the bottom level. And it's true, and whilst we have a focus, I guess, around that mid-range of businesses in that $5 to $25 million break, we do quite a lot of work with small businesses and businesses that are entering into export markets, particularly in areas of technology and also in some of in areas of manufacturing, food and beverage, and etc. The sorts of things we do help you grow your capability, help boost your global reach your customers and potential customers, understand what those markets look like, as mentioned, invest in your growth, and connect you into other businesses. Core things about what we do. We have a whole program around coalitions, as I mentioned. These are shared opportunities where businesses come together to achieve a particular challenge in a market, and that's something which I think there's plenty of potential for within a defence market context. So, in terms of what happened in earlier this year with COVID-19, I just want to mention some of the things that steps that we took. We stood up a website immediately for exporters and investors and put a lot of content in there and drove a lot of that immediate content around the effects, the impact of COVID-19 That's available, freely available on a public website. It's got a lot of information there around that response. We undertook with, we contracted PwC, KPMG and Deloitte to run workshops with over 400 and over 400 of our customers on business continuity. So how do you actually respond to the immediate crisis? Those were rapidly and eagerly taken up by our customers. We also, alongside that, had cash flow clinics, which were more based around just the implications of management of cash flow. That they were run through that period as well. We stood up a whole freight organisation, recognising that we had tremendous freight air freight capacity constraints. How could we collaborate in order to be able to achieve and make sure that we kept getting product to market for our customers? And that's now migrated over into being run out of the Ministry of Transport. We made available our Beachhead Advisories network around the world to provide support for firms that needed to customers that needed immediate assistance in understanding the impacts in particular markets. And we pumped a whole lot more money into regional business partners that impacted on over 6,000 companies around New Zealand. So we immediately had quite a lot on our plate during that COVID-19 immediate response. Now you might have seen that in the budget. The budget in 2020 signalled investment of additional 216 million over 4 years into NZTE. So that's all about the recovery process. And so the question is, I guess the key question is, how's that money going to get spent? So we're looking at increasing that focus customers and customer support. We have up to now been that focus support has been delivered on the basis of 700 businesses in New Zealand that get that intensive support. We're increasing that size. We're going through a process at the moment of analysing what that size will be, whether it'll be 900 or 1,200 or something like that. We haven't made those decisions yet, but that support has been increased. We're also focusing around digital commerce capability. So recognising that one of the lessons learnt from this from the pandemic and the response is the importance of having digital capability within your company, right through digitising your entire business process. How do we make that happen? New Zealand firms are very innovative, but they are often constrained and often are lacking in some of the best practices around digital commerce. Similarly, a centre of excellence in freighter logistics was recognised as being something coming out of our COVID response. Significant investment in increased presence in international markets. So of that 216, about $40 million of that 216 million is being put into actually recruiting literally more people in our international offices to be able to support New Zealand businesses, and also providing those people with additional tools to enable them to work as appropriately directly for customers, representing customers in the market. So those are really the potential there to actually operate in a much more sophisticated way than we've been able to support those customers doing business with their customers in the market. And we're exploring the limits of what that might mean. So we're open to the opportunity there. Strengthening New Zealand brand is important, and you will have seen actually just launched in the last week. Tourism New Zealand has launched a whole new brand positioning around tourism proposition. We'll be following through with that, with a whole story that's been starting off in food and beverage and then into technology. So that's about making sure that New Zealand stays in the minds of buyers around the world. And we're also pumping a lot of money into increased support around an international growth fund, which is available to our focus customers. That's been increased from 30 million to 60 million a year. So a total of 120 of that 216 million is in funding, which grant funding allocated out to businesses to support their market development plans. So the Australia Defence Program, which is where I come in, this is based on and recognises the importance of the Australian defence market and the role that New Zealand businesses can have to play within those Australian defence supply chains. So it's about identification of committed customers. So I've got work going on currently and been talking with Jenny and the NZDIA team around identifying new businesses in the defence space, and we're doing some work around capability mapping there. Preparing for the market. Earlier this week, we had a new to defence seminar being hosted. I hosted that with Audrey McCarthy from the Defence Teaming Centre in South Australia, speaking around how do you position yourself and how do you think about the Australian defence market as a small to medium New Zealand business. We're engaging with defence primes in Australia. We had BAE out here earlier this year talking to New Zealand and talking to about over 70 New Zealand businesses. We've got online briefings with Hanwha and Lockheed Martin coming up over the next few weeks. So these are all opportunities for connecting New Zealand firms in with primes. And we'll continue to do the work around amplifying, talking the New Zealand story within Australia. That's using our High Commission and our Defence Advisor team in Canberra to be able to reach into the defence infrastructure in Canberra and start to continue to raise that story around what New Zealand means there. And I'll also just add to that we in NZTE are recruiting two new people in Australia to work on the defence market. Part of that new tranche of funding into feet on the street, if you like, internationally, will include those two people to work specifically on building our opportunities in the defence market and working with our customers, you guys, in that space. So I'll just finish up by just making mention, if there's one thing I want you to take out of today, is to go to this website, mynzte.gov.nz. It's been launched as a new portal for New Zealand businesses. You'll be any person can go in there and register for that. You can then go in and pick up information around particular markets, knowledge, connections, and so forth. You can then also, through this, understand how you can become a customer of NZTE and start to take, and we can start to work with you on your journey, on your international journey. So, kamatau ina, te taurapa tahono, e tu atu nei, e mihi atu nei. Thank you very much. Tēnā koutou.